what if the sustainable choices you're making right now, like, from the eco-friendly hotel you book to the green products you buy, what if they're actually just locking our planet into a state of permanent decline?
I mean, it's a jarring thought, isn't it?
It really is. So, welcome the learner to today's deep dive. We are exploring a massive, mostly unseen paradigm shift in how we travel, how we interact with our communities, and literally how we view our place in the world.
Yeah, and the core premise here is somewhat radical. It basically says the era of sustainability is over.
Right. Which sounds crazy because we've spent, the last few decades treating sustainability as the ultimate unquestionable gold standard.
Oh, absolutely. But the research we're analyzing today makes a really compelling case that simply aiming to, do no harm is actively failing both our planet and our communities.
So to get into this, we are pulling from a remarkably comprehensive 2026 academic paper. It's titled From Sustainability to Regeneration, a Paradigm Shift in Tourism Development, written by researchers Ramesh Raj Kunwar and Nimish Ulek.
And it was published in the Journal of APF Command and Staff College in Nepal.
Right. And I have to say, looking through the sources, this paper is a massive synthesis.
It really is. I mean, the authors don't just look at tourism. They trace decades of literature across ecology, sociology, indigenous philosophy, agriculture, basically mapping out how human systems have to change if we want to survive.
So our mission today is to decode what they actually found. We're going to figure out exactly what regenerative means, moving from its literal roots in the dirt to, the future of how you'll take your next vacation.
But to understand where we're going, we really first have to understand why the current gold standard sustainability is fundamentally flawed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to do that, we need to look at how sustainability even became the global baseline in the first place, right?
Right. The modern concept really took off with the 1987 Brundtland Report.
That was published by the UN World Commission on Environment and Development, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. And their definition was super straightforward. They said sustainable development means meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Which, on the surface, that sounds completely logical, like don't borrow from tomorrow to pay for today.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But then I was reading through the sources and saw this concept from 1998 by Ray C. Anderson. He coined this term Mount Sustainability.
Oh, Mount Sustainability, yes.
Yeah, and he framed it as this monumental challenge, right, like higher than Everest, where the ultimate summit for an industry was to reach a zero environmental footprint.
And Anderson was really a visionary for his time. He realized that for a traditional polluting industrial business to transform into a circular company with zero negative impact, what he called Mission Zero, it required rethinking the entire industrial model.
Wow.
Yeah, it was this arduous, systemic climb just to reach a point of basically neutrality.
Right, neutrality. But here is the glaring paradox the authors point out. By definition, sustainability assumes there is a desirable, healthy baseline state of being that we can just maintain indefinitely.
Exactly. It implies that if we hit Anderson's Mission Zero, we're safe.
But, look out the window. We are in a world that's already facing massive climate crises, biodiversity collapse, social inequality. So in that context, sustainability is essentially like treading water when you are already drowning.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, it keeps things from getting actively worse in that exact second, but it does absolutely nothing to get you safely to shore.
And this raises an important question. If you're treading water in a fundamentally degraded environment, aren't you just sustaining a state of decline?
Oof. Sustaining a decline.
Right. The authors focus heavily on this concept of degeneration, which simply means a decline in value or health over time.
Which we've definitely seen.
Decades of extractive industrial practices have already severely diminished life on Earth. So if we just sustain our current global ecosystem, we're locking in that damaged, degenerate state.
We're basically putting a pause button on the bleeding, but we aren't healing the wound.
Exactly.
If sustainability is just treading water, we desperately need to find a life raft. And the researchers suggest the blueprint for that life raft can be found by looking at the literal origins of the words we use to describe healing.
What's really fascinating here is the etymology. The paper traces these concepts back to their Latin roots, and it reveals this massive functional difference in how we approach problem solving.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, take the word restoration. It comes from the Latin word restare, which means to repair, to give back, or to build up again.
So it implies fixing something to return it to a specific past state,
Right.
like restoring an old Victorian house. You want it to
Yeah.
look exactly the way it did in, I don't know, 1890.
Yes, but regeneration comes from the Latin generare, which means to give birth, to generate, or to create anew.
Create anew.
So if restoration means to make something well again, based on its past, regeneration means to make it continuously better. You're creating conditions where a system can actually evolve.
So the adjectives aren't like maintained or fixed.
No, the authors associate a regenerative state with words like flourishing and thriving.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second, because I know what the listener might be thinking here. When I first read this, my immediate reaction was, isn't regeneration just a trendy marketing rebrand?
A buzzword, yeah.
Like, it sounds like the tourism industry realized sustainable lost its marketing shine, so they just slapped a new buzzword on fixing what's broken to sound innovative.
And look, that skepticism is entirely warranted, especially given how freely corporations use greenwashing nowadays.
Oh, totally.
But the researcher Dias, writing in 2018, makes this brilliant scientific distinction that proves this isn't just marketing jargon. Dias states that because life evolves and is not static, we can never actually restore a living system to its original condition.
Because you literally cannot roll back the clock.
You can't. Think about trying to restore a coastal reef to exactly how it was 100 years ago.
Right, the environment's totally different now.
Exactly. The water temperature is different, the acidity levels have changed, the surrounding species have either evolved or migrated. If you just rebuild the old reef, it will die in the new conditions.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, regeneration is about breathing life back into that system so it can self-organize, adapt, and evolve. You aren't freezing a landscape in amber, You're creating fertile conditions for life to continuously renew itself and transcend into whatever form it needs to take next to survive.
That completely shifts the goalposts. It's not about going backward to some pristine past. It's about engineering forward momentum.
Yes.
And what's incredible is that this philosophy didn't originate in a corporate boardroom or like a high-level tourism summit. The
Yeah.
researchers show that the blueprint for regeneration started literally in the dirt.
It did. The conceptual roots of regenerative tourism draw heavily from permaculture and regenerative agriculture.
Okay, take us back. When did this start?
Well, in 1978, an Australian ecologist named Bill Mollison and his student David Holmgren coined the word permaculture, which is a contraction of permanent agriculture or permanent culture.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because I think a lot of people probably hear the word permaculture and picture like a hipster gardening trend.
Right, like growing heirloom tomatoes on an apartment balcony.
Exactly. But the sources show it's actually a profound, holistic framework for how human beings can participate in ecosystems to engineer optimum health.
Yeah, permaculture is governed by 3 strict, non-negotiable ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share.
Okay, break those down for us.
Sure, so earth care goes far beyond just don't pollute. It means actively designing systems that allow all life to continue and multiply. People care ensures communities have access to the resources they need to thrive.
And fair share.
Fair share is the mechanism that ties it together. It means recognizing that healthy natural systems operate on abundance, and the surplus outputs from one element should be used to nourish others.
And the paper includes a fascinating historical footnote here. Bill Mollison actually brought this specific permaculture training to Nepal in 1986.
He did, yeah.
He facilitated the first permaculture design course in Kathmandu, which really illustrates just how globally this knowledge was spreading decades before ecotourism was even a mainstream hashtag.
Right, and that foundation eventually evolved into regenerative agriculture, which was a movement mainstreamed in the early 1980s by the Rodale Institute.
Okay, so how does that differ from permaculture?
In regenerative agriculture, the biological health of the soil is the literal foundation of everything. It's an approach to farming that uses soil restoration as the entry point to regenerate the entire surrounding water cycle, the carbon cycle, and even the local economy.
The researchers also highlight the work of Robin Wall Kimmerer from 2011, who writes about reciprocal restoration. I love this part because this isn't a new scientific invention. It's deeply rooted in indigenous belief systems.
Yes, reciprocal restoration encompasses the repair of both ecosystem services and cultural services simultaneously. It's based on this indigenous understanding that all flourishing is mutual.
Which is so different from how we usually think about it.
Oh, fundamentally different. In modern Western thought, we often operate under the assumption that humans are basically a virus on the earth,
Right. Like the only way to save nature is to separate ourselves from it.
Exactly. Lock nature behind a fence and don't touch it. But reciprocal restoration argues that humans are actually a keystone species. We co-evolve with nature, and we have a responsibility to foster renewed relationships of respect and reciprocity with the land.
So we can actually be a positive healing force in the ecosystem rather than just a destructive one that we try to minimize.
Exactly. And to grasp the magnitude of this, we really have to look at the underlying mental models. The paper discusses living systems thinking, which is a framework developed by Charles Crone in the 1980s.
Okay, living systems thinking.
Right. Historically, global industries have operated under what's called a mechanistic worldview,
Meaning,
meaning we viewed the world as a machine made of individual separate parts. If a part breaks, you replace it. If a forest has trees, you view it as an inventory of timber waiting to be harvested.
and if we apply that mechanistic view to a local community, we just see a labor force.
That's exactly the problem. But living systems thinking forces us into an ecological worldview.
Which is a complete 180.
It is. It views the world as a complex, interconnected web. It recognizes that humans are nested within the wider ecology. The authors describe this as being an autopoietic system.
Wait, autopoietic, that sounds like a highly technical engineering term. How does that translate for the rest of us?
It basically means self-producing. So think of the human body. Your body isn't just a machine made of static parts. Your cells are constantly dying, regenerating, communicating, and healing based on your environment, your food, your stress levels.
Okay, that makes sense.
An ecosystem is the exact same way. A forest or a coastal town is a self-producing system, and humans are active cells within it. We participate in the transformation and evolution of the spaces we inhabit.
And this brings us to the core tension of the deep dive today. We have these beautiful, scientifically backed agricultural and ecological models that focus on soil health, crop yields, and mutual flourishing.
Right.
But how on earth do we translate that to someone booking a flight, a hotel, and a zipline tour?
And that is the crucial pivot the authors make. The old model of sustainable tourism simply wasn't working. The literature shows sustainable tourism peaked as a concept around 2021, but the paper notes that by 2019, a staggeringly low 11% of nations had actually implemented sustainable tourism practices.
Wait, 11%.
Yes, just 11%.
For a buzzword plastered on every hotel website, that is an abysmal failure rate.
It failed because the framework was just too limiting to operationalize within our current economic models. Regenerative tourism demands a complete paradigm shift. We have to stop viewing tourism as an industry, which, relies on that mechanistic view of extracting profit from a location, and start viewing it as a living system.
I want to pause here and just ask you, the listener, to picture your last vacation. Think about the place you went. Did you treat that destination like a vending machine? Like you put in your money, press a button, and extract an experience, a photograph, or a cheap souvenir? Or did you see yourself as a temporary active cell within a living organism?
The vending machine analogy perfectly captures the extractive model, honestly. Regenerative tourism acknowledges that every visitor is deeply connected with everything in a destination system.
Like what, specifically?
Like the local food web, the energy grid, the water table, and obviously the people who live there.
The paper argues this requires stepping away from what they call capitalist-centric views and embracing a decolonial paradigm.
Right.
Those are heavy academic terms. Let's ground that. What does a capital-centric vacation actually look like in practice?
Well, a capitalist-centric view means the sole metric of success for a destination is financial profit and GDP growth.
So like a massive resort.
Exactly. A classic example is a massive foreign-owned resort built on a pristine beach. The resort imports all its food, it pays local workers minimum wage, and it funnels like 90% of the profits back to a corporate headquarters on another continent.
But they might ask you to reuse your towel to be sustainable.
Yes. It might have a little card in the bathroom about the towels, but the actual structure is entirely extractive. A decolonial paradigm challenges that by embracing alternative, local forms of well-being, and the authors specifically highlight the Maori concept of wealth.
Which fundamentally redefines what a successful destination looks like.
It really does. Scholars like Cave and Dredge point out that in the Maori worldview, wealth is this holistic concept of well-being understood through three pillars: being, belonging, and becoming.
Being, belonging, and becoming. Okay, break those down.
So being reflects who the individual or community is culturally. Belonging entails their deep relationship with the environment. And becoming involves what they do to achieve their aspirations in harmony with that environment.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, A regenerative destination doesn't measure success just by hotel occupancy rates. The goal is to generate a literal net positive effect. A business or a traveler must contribute more to the environment and society than they extract.
Exactly. Let's look at what a regenerative hotel actually does differently. Instead of just putting a recycling bin in the lobby, a regenerative hotel might be built using local sustainable materials.
Okay?
It employs locals at living wages in management positions, not just service roles. It sources its food entirely from indigenous farmers, and it might use its own organic waste to produce compost that goes right back to those same local farms.
Wow. So the destination is literally in a better, more resilient condition because that business operates there.
That's the goal.
Which sounds incredibly ambitious. It really makes me wonder who is actually going to drive this massive shift.
Right, because it's a huge change.
Yeah. It's one thing to write about it in an academic journal, but moving millions of tourists from extracting experiences out of a vending machine to generating net positive impacts.
Yeah.
Is there a real demographic driving this?
There is, actually. There's a very real, measurable demographic driving this shift. Sociologists Paul H. Ray and Sherry Ruth Anderson identified them back in the year 2000. They called them the cultural creatives.
Cultural creatives, how do they define that group?
They define them as inner-directed people who embrace globalism, ecology, social justice, and authentic experiences.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they care deeply about repairing the planet, but they are also really focused on personal relationships, self-actualization, and peace. They're basically socially concerned, value-led consumers.
And according to the sources, they're the ones driving conscious travel, which is a concept pioneered by tourism strategist Anna Pollock.
Right. Pollock notes that conscious travelers are fundamentally reinventing themselves and the way they interact with the world. They value what is slow, small, and simple. They seek meaningful experiences that help them develop as human beings, and they demand that their hosts act locally but think globally.
The paper actually dropped a piece of historical context here that I found absolutely fascinating. 80 years ago, right after the catastrophic destruction of the Second World War, two scholars named Hunziker and Kraft proposed that tourism could serve as a powerful catalyst for regenerative development to foster peace and rebuild a divided Europe.
It is a profound insight. Tourism is arguably the only global sector with the unique cross-cultural reach to affect such immense psychological and economic transitions.
Right, because everybody travels.
Exactly. When people travel, they cross borders, both literal and mental. They interact with different economies, share meals, experience foreign ecosystems. If we design tourism as a living, healing system, it has unparalleled power to rebuild communities.
So what does this all mean for the listener? How can a regular person actually travel this way? Because I'll be honest, sometimes these high-level ecological concepts can make you feel like your hard-earned vacation has to be this guilt-ridden charity project.
Totally understandable fear.
Right. Does being a conscious traveler mean I have to spend my 2 weeks of PTO doing manual labor just to offset my carbon footprint?
Not at all. That is a really common misunderstanding of regeneration. It is absolutely not about guilt or sacrificing your joy. It is about deep connection.
Okay, connection.
Bill Reed, one of the pioneers of regenerative development, he says that regeneration is fundamentally about restoring the capability to live in a new relationship.
A new relationship with the place you're visiting.
Exactly that. From a traveler's perspective, it's really about slowing down your rhythm to match the rhythm of the local community.
So not just rushing around.
Right. Instead of rushing to 10 overcrowded tourist traps to take selfies, a conscious traveler might spend 5 days really getting to know one neighborhood.
That sounds a lot less stressful, honestly.
It is. They eat at family-owned restaurants. They buy art directly from the maker rather than, a mass-produced souvenir shop. They might take a cooking class from a local resident.
It's shifting your mindset from being a consumer of a backdrop to being an active, respectful participant in a living community.
Yes.
And the traveler flourishes through authentic connection, and the destination flourishes because the traveler's financial and social presence actually nourishes the local ecosystem.
It is a mutually beneficial exchange. You are leaving the place better than you found it, simply by how you choose to interact with it.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. I mean, we started by looking at why the baseline of doing less harm and sustainability, that Brundtland Report standard we've relied on for decades, is ultimately like treading water while drowning.
Yeah, and we traced the etymology of regeneration, moving beyond the idea of restoring things to a frozen past state, and toward creating the conditions for ecosystems to actively adapt, thrive, and evolve.
We dug into the dirt to find the roots of permaculture and regenerative agriculture, exploring how the ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share prove that humans can be a keystone species of healing, not just destruction.
And we explored how this is transforming our entire concept of travel. We are moving from a mechanistic industry mindset of extraction to a living systems approach where conscious travelers seek to leave a net positive impact.
Redefining wealth through being, belonging, and becoming.
Exactly.
It really is a bold vision of travel where human beings are active, healing participants in a living ecosystem.
And to leave you with a final thought to mull over, I want to bring up a concept briefly mentioned in the academic sources called symbiosis.
Coined by the scholar Donna Haraway, symbiosis translates to making with.
Making with.
Yeah, it is this profound idea that nothing makes itself.
Yeah.
We are all collectively producing the world together through our continuous interactions.
So, the next time you travel, what if your goal isn't just to make memories for yourself, but to ask, what will this place remember about me? How can you participate in the symbiosis of a destination so that when you leave, the soil, the local economy, and the culture are literally more vibrant because you were there? You don't have to just sustain a burning house or shred water. You can help build the life raft. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we will catch you next time.